a shooting at the Safeway. A man with a semi-automatic weapon. Units responding, advised.
The case of a neighborhood watch captain in Florida who shot and killed an unarmed 17-year-old.
A lone gunman opens fire in a theater outside of Denver, Colorado.
The worst grade school shooting in U.S. history, at least 27 dead, 20 children, 7 adults, including the principal.
Multiple people shot at an elementary school in San Bernardino, California. The local fire department confirms multiple victims.
You think America loves guns?
Yes. In America, guns are extremely accessible, and I don't even mean just in urban areas. They're extremely accessible to everyone can own one.
There's no other use for a gun other than to like harm somebody else. And it's funny how like that symbolizes protection to me.
You can walk around with a gun in your holster in the airport, and that's bad. And they sell guns at Walmart. Okay, you get a gun.
Yeah. How can we channel this to make something that is meaningful?
My cousin got shot in the head 3 times last year right up the block. I almost saw my cousin get shot recently on Ocean and Neptune. I'm sick and tired of guns in the city. I'm sick and tired of people getting shot out here. And I'm sick and tired of everybody killing each other for petty, stupid things.
We have the right to say something, and we will.
My childhood friend, he was shot in broad daylight.
My brother was a Jersey City police officer. He was ambushed by a person with a gun.
My father was shot in the head and killed. My cousin was shot in the head and killed.
I have a couple family members who were victims of gun violence.
Nobody called the cops, nobody called the ambulance. People just pulled out their phones and recorded him, watched him struggle for his life.
This gun violence has destroyed my life, my family's life, and other people's lives.
The Jersey City Mural Arts Program was initiated in the fall of 2013 as an anti-graffiti initiative. We were able to utilize a small portion of the city's Clean Communities grant that recognizes murals as an evidence-based approach towards the reduction of graffiti. We were able to use a small portion of this grant to rid some of the most graffiti-prone areas of blight and vandalism while harnessing all of the amazing benefits that public art brings.
The Summer Youth Program is a remarkable program, particularly for a city to host it and support it and allow the youth of today to come up with their own ideas, with their own themes, under the guidance of 2 exemplary teachers like Duda and Catherine. I wish that when I was young, I had had that opportunity, but to have a city government sort of support this initiative is really inspirational.
At any given time in the summer, we have over 110 youth reporting here in a variety of different positions that we make available for them, whether they're part of our youth anti-litter program, they're in our youth apprenticeship program where they're able to train in various departments here at the Department of Public Works, and the art program. And what we have found is that when violence happens in this city, it's intimately related to the young people that we're working with.
This year's topic was powerful, needless to say, because of the escalating gun violence in the US, because of our ability to access social media and media, because of Jersey City and its own history with gun violence. The students, I believe, tackle this with great aplomb, and great courage. It takes a lot of courage to address something that might have affected you personally.
Each year we start the program off with a field trip that's relevant to the themes that they're discussing. So this year we were able to send them to the United Nations to tour the art collection, and this allowed them to place their own personal experiences here in Jersey City on a global level. It was really moving to hear a lot of the feedback from young people who came to understand the economy of weapons and violence in the world. And they were able to understand that, unfortunately, as a nation and as a globe, we're outspending on violence and destruction over education.
In the building, throughout the whole building, it was all covered in like these large art pieces.
They actually gave life to the building.
Even the rooms themselves were an art piece.
When we went to the UN, I really liked how a lot of the art, like every piece of art that they had in there mattered. Like they didn't just have art in there just because it looked nice. Like everything had to do with the message of keeping the peace and talking about human rights throughout. So when we saw in the room, like they had elements where it was like birds and banners and little symbols in there. Everything like meant something to not just like the people in the room, but like to what their whole mission was about.
Even the wallpaper has like meaning to it, like the symbols like symbolizes peace.
Every single mural around the place had this like reoccurring theme of past, present, and future.
What really touched me in the UN experience was the consistency of the art, because they all speak the same message. They talk about the struggle, then they talk about working through the struggle and then working towards the peace. And I liked how pretty much every piece of artwork had that same message.
The most important moment for me at the United Nations was when the tour guide was talking about the Holocaust, because it really showed me how unhumane some people are.
There was a statue of a gun, and towards the end it was twisted up. And I thought that was really powerful, considering the fact that we're doing a mural on gun violence.
The most meaningful moment for me at the United Nations was how I saw what they spend on the war costs and what they spend on education for the kids. It's ridiculous. And the war cost numbers in the trillions, and then the education for the children are only in the millions. Like that's unacceptable.
It shows that the United States spend more money on weapons and military equipment than they do on educating their own students and their own children.
We need for our world leaders to talk to each other, speak to each other in order for us to have some sort of peace and balance, and make sure we don't have miscommunications with one another, so nothing like World War III will show up out of nowhere.
It just felt like all the nations together was just connected.
I always try to look at the other person's side, and there are a lot of people who believe in the right to keep and bear arms, and some people just think it's in the Constitution and they never want to tinker with that document. Other people think, yes, they actually need to do it to safeguard freedom, just like they did back in the 1770s. Other very smart people say, come on now, we live in 2017. It's not the 1770s anymore. We don't think the British are going to come and try to take our rights away from us anymore. We're not afraid of that type of tyranny today. Why are we still paying homage to something that's incredibly outdated? Unfortunately, in America, we can't seem to reach a consensus on it.
It's something we've just never seen before. Members of Congress staging a sit-in like a bunch of protesters on a college campus.
We are blind to a crisis. Mr. Speaker, where is the heart of this body? Where is our soul?
It was Congressman John Lewis, who famously led sit-ins in the segregated South, who started today's sit-in on the House floor. Dozens of Democrats vowing to stay as long as it takes to get a vote on guns. The move incensed Republicans who turned off the cameras and declared a breach of the rules. But That didn't stop the protesting members of Congress who started broadcasting themselves with their cell phones. The Speaker of the House calling it a publicity stunt.
This is trying to get attention.
Since the anguish of Orlando, there have been pleas for some kind of gun legislation. This mother making her case to Congress, posting a picture of her 3-year-old practicing a preschool lockdown, saying this is the future.
Also, we're a big country, and we're a very diverse country. And if you take places like us and New York and California, we're very different from other parts of the country, and their priorities aren't ours. And we don't seem able to find a common ground that we can work on. It's one of the huge problems of our time. At some point, we're going to have to get a breakthrough. I don't know when it's going to be, but I know we can't continue the way we are with the amount of violence we have, the everyday gun violence, the mass shootings. We're going to have to do something. And speaking about guns is going to have to be part of the solution.
Our unalienable right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, those rights were stripped from college kids in Blacksburg and Santa Barbara, and from high schoolers at Columbine, and from first graders in Newtown. First graders. And from every family who never imagined that their loved one would be taken from our lives by a bullet from a gun. Every time I think about those kids, it gets me mad. All of us need to demand a Congress brave enough to stand up to the gun lobby's lies. All of us need to stand up and protect its citizens. All of us need to demand governors and legislators and businesses do their part to make our communities safer. We need the wide majority of responsible gun owners who grieve with us every time this happens and feel like your views are not being properly represented to join with us to demand something better.
We're having, as a result of all this pressure, we're having a conversation about policing now that probably should have happened earlier, but better late than never. And we're having communities that have not had their voices heard, and it's not just the African American community, the Muslim community, which has been the subject of a lot of suspicion since 9/11 and has been policed in a different manner than other people. The Hispanic community, the Asian community in certain parts of the United States, they're all speaking up and saying, you know what, we demand that you live up to the values that this country was founded on. We demand that everybody be treated equal and everybody be treated fairly. And police officers are responding, okay, there is a flip side to that. Crime is not equal in every community. And we have to deal with what we come across every day. So the conversation is finally happening. 9/11 happened.
War has been waged against us by stealth and deceit and murder. This nation is peaceful, but fierce when stirred to anger.
And we started having some problems out on the streets and we got very afraid of terrorists after 9/11, probably a little too afraid. And suddenly we armed all these police departments with military-grade weaponry in case the terrorists came over here. So most departments are now rethinking that. I'm sure you all saw the pictures from Ferguson and stuff like that, where you saw people using that military-grade weaponry and pointing it at just unarmed civilians. And that goes to an old military theory. I don't want to bore everybody here, but there's an old military theory that President Eisenhower used to quote all the time. And he used to say, if you have, and I'm going to shorten it, if you have something, you'll use it.
So we started the mural program in 2013, a couple different reasons why. The first was that we have a really terrific arts community here. that we think we're capable and we wanted to showcase. So that's number one. Number two is I thought we were geographically situated in a place where we could also attract a lot of artists from around the world and around the country to visit us and further highlight Jersey City, which would benefit the city and the arts community here. And then third, we had a lot of dead space, and I think that the mural program had the potential to create kind of an outdoor gallery in many regards. So a lot of different reasons why, and I think it's been a pretty successful program up till now. We have over 100 murals. About 50 of them are from local artists, and about 50 of them are from people from outside of Jersey City, and that is from around the world and around the country. We've been able to attract varying ages, varying backgrounds, and also some significant ones from Shepherd Ferry to Cobra to local artists that are up and coming. So, it's been terrific. You need to think about what are we doing to facilitate opportunities for young people that are more driven towards arts and culture. And so we started to think about youth programs, tying it into our mural programs. And I think that it's been terrific. It's gotten better every single year. The one they did this year really touches on an issue that's across the country, gun violence. And, I think it's important because through art, the young people can be part of the conversation with regards to how they see the city around them.
I think the piece is actually, in my opinion, I think it's great. I think it's amazing because it actually captures what art is and what art should be and what it does, and what it does, it reveals the heart. So, we have a bunch of kids here that are painting this wall, this mural on gun violence, and they're actually painting from their heart, and they're expressing what it is that their heart is feeling. I'm a big, I strongly believe that art reveals what's in the heart. And that begins the healing process. You're not gonna be able to heal nothing if you don't reveal what's inside and you don't see what's inside. So for the kids to be able to come to these walls and for the property owners to actually extend their walls, for this project, I think it's amazing because it begins the start. It's the starting point. And it is revealing what's in the heart so that we could start the healing process and we could start fixing what's going on in our society. Gun violence is seriously a problem. And it's not just gun violence in itself. It's violence in general.
So that group space apparently goes up to this crack, and we wasn't told that, so we're having to white it out and to move everything down.
But it's not going to be near it anymore because it's going to be halfway over there and halfway over here.
Yeah, like right here.
We have a little situation here. We're being censored. So I don't want you guys to get frustrated. I just gonna need you guys to work with us and just roll with the punches here.
This is a great lesson of what it means to make public art. Things like this happen all the time. And it's great we're experiencing this in real time. We have to think on our feet, we have to creative problem solve, make choices on the spot, and figure out how to still keep integrity with the story we want to tell and honor what the public is wanting. So there's a lot, but we can do it, and if we view this as an opportunity, I think we can get something really nice out of this.
People are seeing this and they're not reacting positively. In my mind, I'm just like, I knew it.
In street art, that happens a lot, but I don't think we should have been censored. If you're afraid of putting guns on a mural, there's guns on the streets right now. how can you just hide the truth of what's really happening?
I completely understand why they want all the guns gone from this mural. But I feel like this mural would be incomplete without them. Like, so many of the images we've created, like, they're very reliant on the guns themselves, and those are powerful images that shouldn't be removed. And like, the fact that we're gonna have to replace all that with like different symbolism and stuff, that I don't think it's gonna get the message across the same way that like having the actual guns there would. Like, yeah, it's symbolism in place of the gun, but not everyone will immediately get the symbolism. Like, they're gonna have to reach for it.
I feel like this problem shouldn't be censored because we have the highest rate of gun violence, and we have, it should be very known in our country that this is happening, and nothing should be, something to that extent should not be censored. And I feel like as artists, we're doing our part in getting that message across, even though we barely got our full image down on the wall.
Don't you see that this is public work? People are going to see this. This is something that people are going to see every day. They're going to look at this and think, why is this here? Why are we putting guns on a wall that people are going to constantly see and look at?
What we're gonna do later. I need you guys to do it. Go ahead.
Oh, I worked so hard on that gun. I really like this gun too. That's the sad part. I like this entire image and like the little quote that comes out of it. That was dope as hell.
I think we're doing a good thing here. I understand why they wanted to like shut it down because of the gun things. But I think a problem with us and a problem with our society is that we sugarcoat things too much. And sometimes the truth is not always pretty, and it's not going to be pleasant to people. And it's not always going to be what people want to hear. It's not going to be what always people want to see.
Especially for the location we're doing, since this is a firehouse, like with police officers and firemen. Putting violent imagery in a location like this was not the best idea.
It's like they're trying to avoid the reality of what it is. Like, there are guns everywhere in the United States. They are being used for wrong. And us putting it on the wall shouldn't be the problem. What we're trying to do with this wall is to show that it's a problem and it's there. And trying to censor it kind of just, it brings the issue out even more.
I think that it can bring attention to the piece, to what's going on, but like it's a negative attention because a lot of people out here are looking at a mural with guns. They're not looking at it as there needs to be gun control. They're looking at it as, oh, there's guns on the walls. This is a bad influence. And they're not sitting there taking their actions or what's going on in their neighborhood as a way of, okay, maybe this is a sign.
I feel like even if we change it, we could still get our message across. It just depends on how we interpret our own images and how we shape them into a different manner. Being the artists that we are, we all have different skills and we can all create a message no matter what. So if we change it from being like, from guns to hope, then I think we can do it.
I think it's very innovative to have the next generation engage in a project that addresses a crisis in any society. Because as far as I'm concerned, my generation has lost its way in terms of discussion of the issue of gun violence. Tied to that, the Second Amendment issue, obviously.
I believe that there are certain uses of guns that are just for the military. It should only be for the military. And if folks want to exercise their right to bear arms, do so. But even then, there should be background checks. There should be a better, more stringent way, a more difficult way, challenging way to get a firearm. It should definitely not be easier to get a firearm in our country than it is to get a driver's license.
And I think it does relate back to what the Founding Fathers meant in creating this ambiguous Second Amendment, which really dealt with the creation of state militias and their fear of two things. The Founding Fathers feared a federal army. They feared the government creating an army that would suppress its people. So they gave the people the right to bear arms, to create state militias so that there'd be no federal government army that would subjugate them as the British did. They also feared two things. They feared insurrection by local citizens, and they feared insurrection of freed black slaves. So these militias were empowered to really suppress insurrection internally. And I think over the years that has been twisted into thinking that individuals have a right to bear arms for themselves.
More than 800 murders occurred 30 days after the crazy Las Vegas massacre. And so the mural's of great importance because it helps us to create some dialogue, some conversation. Part of the national debate has to do with violence and how we have somehow, some way, cultivated this culture of violence. And so we need to talk about it, because if we can get the next generation, the millennials, and the kids that are coming up, the next generation, to talk about the dangers of violence and how it is that we can engage in effective conflict resolution without violence, then hopefully we will decrease the murders, we will decrease the homicides, we will decrease not just gun violence, but physical violence overall.
And then there's a question of individual rights and the definition of freedom. Because, you know, when I studied philosophy, I'll never forget Immanuel Kant, who wrote something called the categorical imperative, where he described freedom. And he says, you're not free when you're doing whatever you want to do. Because when you want to do something, you can be enslaved by your passions. And if you're enslaved by your passions, then you're not free. Freedom is to do what you ought to do, what you should do as a citizen, because that's free and that liberates everybody.
It shows them how art can be used to change things, how art can be used as a tool. A famous line by Pablo Picasso is that art is not just something merely meant to decorate the walls of your house. It should be used as a tool of war against the enemy. And I always love that quote that Picasso made. And the enemy can be anything. The enemy can be violence. The enemy can be hatred. The enemy could be oppression. It could be whatever. But now by this project that they did this last time against the gun violence, it teaches them how to use their art now as a tool for social change, how to possibly get somebody to think differently, how to actually impact society, and how to speak in the current. And what I mean by that, it tells them how to make their art significant for the time they live in. What is their voice for their generation? You know, the problems that this generation faces. How does your art become significant? And a lot of times that's the art that's remembered throughout history.
So today we're back in the classroom, obviously trying to resolve the changes we need to make very quickly. It's really an interesting thing. I'm very happy that this happened at this point in the process, so we actually have a chance to rework the whole mural before we start painting it. It would have been pretty heartbreaking if it happened towards the end and we ran out of time to fix it, and I would have hated to see this whole summer of work just be painted over.
Another beautiful element is this hands. People holding hands, like cast shadow, people holding hands, the message of hope and other things. There's also a lot of flowers being inserted in different parts, which really brings this idea of celebrating life, planting something new. As we move along, then you have other people then also being killed in different situations. There's few portraits. This is changing a lot with real work in this. And then this image being eliminated and other things that are brought in.
And I think it's important that the community hear from the kids. So we have the tricky job of how do we not water down the reality, but how do we make it still have a positive and hopeful feeling?
So this mural overall, even though there are people that being memorialized, people that being killed, is a message of hope. It's a message of reflection to this nation, obviously, to anyone else involved in this process.
until you're in it, until you're a victim of it, whether it's your family, your loved one, a friend, you don't realize how much gun violence is affecting everybody throughout the whole country. And I knew what was out there, but I never really understood it until my son's life was taken so viciously and for no reason.
Breaking news out of Jersey City this morning. A police officer shot and killed in a confrontation outside a local drugstore.
23-year-old Melvin Santiago is the first Jersey City officer to die in the line of duty since July of 2009. The suspect in the case is also dead tonight after reportedly telling a witness he was, quote, going to be famous.
The mayor telling us that Officer Santiago showed up with his partner to a Walgreens store this morning after getting a call about an armed robbery. As they got to the scene, the suspect in this case opened fire, shooting Officer Santiago in the head, and that bullet wound is what ended up killing him.
When Melvin became a cop, I instantly thought, he's okay now. He's gonna be okay. He achieved his goal. He's going to be all right. I don't have to worry like I used to worry about him. I was so naive and so ignorant to it. I just never thought it until they knocked on my door and came to get us. And we had to go to the hospital and see him laying on that bed with a patch over his eye because his eye was missing because somebody shot him in the face. None of these victims on this wall should be here. And I can only imagine what their family goes through because it's been 3 years and it doesn't get easier.
My son was 23 years old and he was a good boy and he didn't deserve to get a bullet in his head for no reason, for just doing his job.
Alex has had a hard time with Melvin's death. He was 13 when it happened. Melvin was his best friend, and it's very hard to try to move forward from that. We don't want to move on, we want to move forward. And I think being he's so talented and he gave up on that, to have it brought back out and to show what an amazing job he did. I mean, it really, look, I see Melvin when I see that picture. From the ears to the chin to the frame. He did it wonderfully, and to see that it was some type of therapy for him helps me. I just think that this art program is going to help kids that maybe feel hopeless sometimes. I think this mural helped my son, and I only hope he continues to be able to move forward, because gun violence not only kills the victim, it kills a piece of the family too. It definitely does. We will never recover from this. Life will never be the same.
I was coming off the light rail right here on West Side Avenue in Jersey City, New Jersey. I actually live 5 blocks away. I came out the light rail and I took a look and I seen a bunch of people painting here. And when I looked, there's a piece here with a woman holding a little boy that actually caught my attention because of my own personal reasons. It actually connected to me, and I actually felt connected to the mural, so I remembered the mural vividly. And then just later on, I seen the mural, they talked about it on social media, and then it was brought to our attention that the mural was about violence and peace, and it connected to us, so I told my brother about it, and now we're here.
Yeah, and the reason why, there's many reasons why it attached to us. One of the reasons being is that we were born and raised in Jersey City. But the main reason was that we were affected by, violent crime. We lost our mother to a shooting in 2007. And
actually, just 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days.
2 days ago made it 11 years.
11 years. And it being 11 years, it's still uncomfortable talking about it. Still hurts like it was yesterday. Very, very tragic loss for us.
I don't get too into detail about what actually happened with our mother, but anything we could do to be a part of the light, to show people the effects you have on our life and on my kids' life. My kids never met their grandmother. The questions we have to answer as fathers. What's sitting at a cemetery and your kids asking you, why I never met your mother? Yeah, that's not, come on. Yeah. Who's gonna answer? My daughter didn't know how my mother died till today.
How do you answer the question when your kid goes, you know, how did they die?
Yeah.
Grandma was shot. Why would somebody shoot her? Why would somebody do that?
I came down to see the wall, that how many lives, because I find that there's a lot of poetic justice in it, especially because I'm also part victim of the whole situation with losing family members to gun violence. My stepfather in Brownsville, Brooklyn, he was executed in 1978, and that was pretty shocking for my mother and the whole family. I mean, he was a great guy, raised me well. I mean, he was tremendous. But then 2 years later, we lost my brother to gun violence in Coney Island, and he was also executed. So therefore, my mother was never the same after that. It was one thing to lose my father, my stepfather, in that situation, and they say that time heals all wounds, but it never does. But then when you lose a child, that completely changed the dynamics of everything that I thought who she was. She lost interest in life. She lost interest in the rest of the children. She actually forgot she had other sons, like a son like me and my sisters. She spiraled out of control mentally. She just stopped living. It took me, I would say, a few years before I actually had a reaction, a physical reaction to my brother's passing. And I can't remember what it was, whether I saw a picture of him or someone mentioned his name. I think that's what it was. It was the anniversary of his passing. And it just all came up. Like literally, I fell on the floor. I want to dedicate this moment to my stepfather, Jesus Figueroa Quintana, and to my brother, Victor Manuel Sereno. And I just hope that they're looking down and that at least I can acknowledge them and that I'm making them happy in sharing that their memory was part of my life and it still lives with me.
We're here today at the second annual Jersey City Youth Justice Conference. We focused this year on the First Amendment right, which protects 5 basic freedoms. Everyone thinks it's just the freedom of speech, but there's a lot of other things involved in there. I want to make sure that the youth in Jersey City have the tools to be effective citizens, to really use all the rights that are afforded to them under the Constitution of the United States. When we started to think about this year's topic with the First Amendment, right away I thought, how can we engage the art program, because it is youth exercising their right to free speech. Speech, of course, doesn't only cover words, it covers demonstrative activity as well, which is art. So something I thought was super interesting was the fact that we're looking this year, we being the art students, are looking at gun violence. And I'm so interested in the idea that what started off as a gun violence project turned into a victims advocacy program.
It's hard work to create a mural that expresses your feelings and then also sends a message to the community. And they talked about their process. They didn't just start creating the mural on day one. They did a lot of research. They went to the UN. They looked at the issue locally, nationally, and globally. And then they selected images that would speak to their concerns, their desires for peace. And they came up with something that was really unique. I also think it's really incredible that Jersey City has an opportunity like this for young people. There are lots of mural programs all over the world, but in Jersey City, we have a government program that enables young people to not only paint murals, but actually create them in dialogue with each other. So I'm really proud of the work that they've done.
Just looking at it, every day you see something new, and that's a successful piece in my opinion, you know? You don't have to go to a museum, it's here, it's available to everyone, and that's what makes it beautiful. It's public. It's not so much seeing a visual gun, it's what the gun is doing to us. Not the gun itself, it's how we choose to use the gun and why that is part of our culture. That's the most important part of the message. And that's where the artist comes in to do what a person cannot maybe do just through speech. They can give us imagery to take us to a higher level, to look deeper into the psyche and the reason for why this is part of our culture today. And that is more important than per se an object. It's taking you to another level. That's what we try to do in education, take you to a higher order thinking. It's not the obvious, it's not what we call the lower level thinking where it's just, look at this gun, that's violence. No, it's not. It's the person, the culture, and the reasoning of how that's used that creates violence.
Right. Initially, I had gotten a call from concerns from firefighters inside the building when they saw the guns on the side. And fire department's part of public safety, so we really work well together with the police. And a lot of the guys in there, even myself, didn't really think it was appropriate to have guns drawn on the side of a firehouse. It just brings the wrong message, we thought. You know, if it's gun violence and anti-gun violence is fine, but actually putting the guns and having them pointing in certain directions, whatever else, we just thought that wasn't the right thing to do on a firehouse, because we're part of the public safety world. And so, talking with everybody, I'm glad that it changed a little bit. I'm sure probably we didn't see the whole picture overall, so we didn't understand it as much as the people who designed it did, and maybe there was something that we didn't really understand. But it was nice that we met and talked, and it came out, I think, a lot better than initially was, and there's no controversy now. Yeah, it's tough. There's a strong gun lobby out there. I have an assault-style weapon. New Jersey, there's certain regulations that you can't have certain things on it. It's tough to prevent people from buying guns if they really want them. But it's good. Me not knowing the name or who that was, now you tell me, people go and buy, maybe they'll Google search it and look it up, and they'll start finding some more information out, which is nice, because it didn't happen in this area, at least not in New Jersey anyway, so it definitely generates some conversation. Yeah, well, it blurs reality. Play with video games, you're shooting everybody. You go into the real world, you get a gun, you don't think anything's gonna happen. It's like you're used to it. Yeah, it's crazy. When I was a kid, we used to fight with our fists. Now they do it with guns.
Art helps us to put a face to the numbers. Art gives you a way of seeing, oh my God, that's a human being that was shot. Someone that I could relate to. My brother, my sister, my cousin. Sometimes I think we've been desensitized. And I think it's also important that young people see that a lot of young people are doing it. In many cases, these are young people going into schools, killing other kids, people their own age.
When I look out at this crowd, I'm reminded that historically, almost every revolution that has ever taken place in the world, from the beginning to now, has been led by young people. The state legislature in New Jersey has been working on gun control legislation for a very long time, and I can say we have the strictest laws in the country here in New Jersey. I also have to say we're the first to admit it's not enough. All right? We're the first to admit it's not enough. We need your help, and we need Washington's help. But your help will get us the help we need from Washington.
we're finally back here. You know, can you believe it? We started in the summer, hot, and now we're here. It's already winter, and wow. What do you feel about this? How do you feel about this whole project?
It's awesome to see it as a completed piece. You know, when you're a leader in a project like this, we're worried about logistics and making sure each student's individual piece is coming to life, but to have some months go by and re-see it, it's just kind of hit me as truly a story that's unfolding and a cohesive work of art. It's awesome. It kind of makes me think too, some of the students, several students actually, reached out to me during the Las Vegas shooting. You know, wow, Catherine, I'm really sitting with this today. And I felt grateful for that because I've had a chance to reflect on my own experience, having been, 13 years old when there was a shooting in my middle school, and remembering how impactful that was. And then sort of slowly over time, 20 years later, standing here as an American feeling kind of immune to that. There's just been so many, and kind of hitting me while working on this project how unfortunate that is. We should never be immune to these things. So I felt really encouraged to hear from the students that, unfortunately more shootings unfolded, but encouraged that I heard from them. They're really thinking about it.
This is just an unbelievable experience. When we think about this whole thing. Recently, we just had another 2 ones. Like the Las Vegas is totally crazy. It's the biggest mass shooting in America.
10:08 p.m. 22,000 country music fans packed in, enjoying the Route 91 Harvest Festival. But high above them on the 32nd floor of the glittering Mandalay Bay Resort, police say 64-year-old Stephen Paddock was watching. They say he hammered through the hotel's thick windows and started firing on the crowd below.
And then right after, we get the texts in the church to another 26 people.
As a state, we are dealing with the largest mass shooting in our state's history. There's so many families who've lost family members. Fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The tragedy, of course, is worsened by the fact that it occurred in a church, a place of worship, where these people were innocently gunned down. We mourn their loss.
So I don't know. It just drives me crazy. What should we do here? Should we just extend that wall and do the next one and paint the next mass shooting, the next one?
Bailey Nicole Holt and Preston Ryan Cope were killed when their classmate opened fire at Marshall County High School as students gathered before morning classes.
The gunman in remote rural area of Northern California started shooting people at random. Police say he killed 4 before they killed him. The wounded include school children.
We begin with breaking news out of Colorado. A sheriff's deputy there has been killed and 4 other deputies have been wounded after a gunman opened fire in an apartment complex in a Denver suburb. 2 residents were also shot, and according to the sheriff's office, the suspect was shot and is believed to be dead.
Thousands of people gathered in Fort Lauderdale over the weekend demanding tighter gun control laws. Other groups are planning a series of protests across the country during the next several weeks.
After that weekend rally, 100 students plan to visit Florida's legislature tomorrow to call for a ban on assault weapons.
All our government and president can do is send thoughts and prayers that it's time for victims to be the change that we need to see.
We have to harden our schools, not soften them up. A gun-free zone to a killer or somebody that wants to be a killer, that's like going in for the ice cream. That means that nobody has a gun except them. Nobody's going to be shooting bullets in the other direction. One of the fake news networks, CNN last night, was saying, I want teachers to have guns. I don't want teachers to have guns. I want certain highly adept people that understand weaponry, guns, if they really have that aptitude. Because these people are cowards. They're not going to walk into a school if 20% of the teachers have guns. It may be 10%, or maybe 40%. And what I'd recommend doing is the people that do carry, we give them a bonus. We give them a little bit of a bonus.
Today all across the country. However, I'm regretful that it took the lost lives of 17 innocent students in Parkland, Florida for us to be here. To be quite honest, we shouldn't be here today. This issue should have been handled 19 years ago through a bipartisan effort.
I'm hoping that that has increased their empathy, increased their empowerment, that they can use their voices to ask these questions, and I hope that there's some sort of hope in our youth tackling these questions.
And what I really love, then we begin this mural with the scream of help. How many lives, right? Asking that critical question, and then everything unfolds, and we end this mural with a blow of hope. And I guess that's what we artists are supposed to do.
Yeah.
To get the reflection out there.
Yeah.